Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you're new here, please take a minute now to subscribe and follow my work at worldaffairsandcontext.com, my Substack. I would love to see you there. In the last year, several significant high-level meetings between South Africa and Saudi Arabia have sparked a wave of investment deals, totaling billions of dollars in Africa's most industrialized nation that also happens to be a founding member of the BRICS Plus Economic Alliance. But this isn't just about money, it's also about strategy, influence, and reshaping of global economic partnerships. So let's quickly break down how this growing alliance is changing the game for both nations and for the African continent. So since 2014, Gulf countries have poured over $100 billion into Africa, and South Africa is becoming one of their main targets. Why, you may ask? I will explain in greater detail in just a minute, but South Africa is very rich in minerals, and relatively speaking, what's very, very important, its infrastructure and assets are still undervalued compared to global value, so which is effectively the best case scenario for any investor. The abundance of South Africa's natural resources makes it one of the world's largest sources of raw materials. South Africa produces more than 10% of the world's gold from more than 30 functioning mines on its territory. South Africa's natural resources also include mineral reserves of iron ore, copper, platinum, silver, manganese, titanium, chromium, and uranium. South Africa is home to nearly 2/3 of the world's platinum and about half of the chromium. Gold and diamond revolutionized the country in the 1800s and helped strengthen the country's economic structure. First, let me share a quick background on the Saudi-South Africa's relations. So it all kicked off in a pivotal meeting in 2022 between Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and South Africa's President Ramaphosa. Since then, delegations have flown back and forth, trade talks have exploded, and so have the deals between the two states. In fact, more than $5 billion worth of agreements and discussions are already on the table, in everything from renewable energy to gas stations, real estate, and logistics. This surge is part of a much larger Gulf drive into Africa, where nations like the UAE and Saudi Arabia are heavily investing in mining, in energy, and in agriculture. Here in the United States, of course, we frequently hear about China facilitating new trade ties and investment ties with African nations that are highly, highly beneficial for both sides. We hear it, unfortunately, in the context of a so-called debt trap. But Western commentators fail to acknowledge Western neo-colonial ambitions on the African continent that still exist, while they denounce other nations' desire to increase trade with African countries, to provide foreign direct investment and, of course, financing at lower cost than any of the Western institutions such as the IMF and the World Bank. So in this particular case, why are Gulf states interested in South Africa? The most likely answer is opportunity. South Africa boasts world-class infrastructure, a highly developed industrial base, and top-tier companies, many of which are undervalued compared to global markets. This is, of course, an opportunity of a lifetime that neither the UAE nor Saudi Arabia can afford to pass up. For example, an official at one of the financial institutions, Investec banks, recently shared there is a disconnect between valuation levels in South Africa compared to other markets. Therefore, investors actually flock there if they really do want to seize an opportunity. Therefore, the South African market is a bargain for long-term investors. Plus, the country's skilled management teams and robust intellectual property give it a really great competitive edge. A spokesperson for South Africa's International Affairs Ministry says that ties have strengthened significantly with Saudi investment growing exponentially. Next month in May, South Africa's trade minister is going to head to Riyadh for the 10th South Africa-Saudi Joint Economic Committee meeting. But despite this apparent enthusiasm, not everything is smooth sailing. Nothing in diplomacy is easy, especially now that a significant portion of geopolitical focus has shifted toward Africa, and the world's great powers, the United States, Russia, and China, are increasingly active on the continent via different channels, of course, be it economic or political and military. So what are the roadblocks to the Saudi-South African relationship? There are many challenges that they have to overcome to expand their ties. For one, Saudi Arabia and South Africa don't have a bilateral investment treaty in place yet, which adds red tape, so to speak, for Saudi companies wanting to expand quickly in South Africa. And with oil prices effectively dropping, Saudi Arabia is under some fiscal pressure as well. It's even considering selling off international assets to stay liquid. While I don't think that this is a true concern for the Saudis at this time, who have vast resources at their disposal if needed, it does add an extra layer to an overly complex process of establishing stronger economic ties with new partners in Africa. Still, Saudi's sovereign wealth fund, worth nearly $1 trillion, is already making big moves in South Africa. For example, Bloomberg recently reported ACWA Power, majority owned by the fund, has invested $1.9 billion into 3 renewable plants, with more plans to spend $378 million more on water and energy projects over the next 5 years. Red Sea Gateway Terminal is another important project. They're actually eyeing Durban's massive port with a potential $600 million bid, one of the biggest in sub-Saharan Africa. So it is going to be a huge project, very, very important. These aren't just financial investments, of course. They're strategic footholds. From logistics to energy, the kingdom is planting really deep roots in South Africa, and it's all aligned with Vision 2030. The Saudi Crown Prince's plan to diversify the Saudi economy beyond oil. Earlier this year, Saudi Arabia announced a $41 billion commitment to Africa across key sectors such as mining, renewables, agriculture, and more. What's emerging here is a clear win-win for the countries of the global majority, the global south. It's a really interesting dynamic that will definitely shape the region. South Africa gains much needed capital. It needs trade links that will help expand its economy, and of course it gains global visibility. Saudi Arabia secures access to key markets, it secures natural resources and future-facing industries. In the world shifting away from oil dependence and toward new global alliances, the Saudi-South African partnership could very well define the next decade of economic growth on the continent. This is absolutely huge for Africa, and it presents, of course, a great opportunity for African countries to leverage multiple actors who are increasingly interested in engaging with the region and more broadly with the continent. So, is this the start of Africa's next golden era, powered by Gulf ambition and Gulf oil money? Let us know in the comments below. Of course, only time will tell, but I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Thank you very much for joining me. If you found this insightful, drop a like and hit that subscribe button for more global business and geopolitical breakdowns. Don't forget to like and support my work as well. I would love to hear from you in the comments below as always, and I will see you back here soon. Take care.